Just admit Bob, he's in the, he's not a panelist.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. Okay.
Excellent. Just going to give it one more minute here. I got to pull up my agenda.
I have to put it on Facebook anyway.
Thank you.
So many things.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting. The Board of Selectmen in attendance is myself, Mike Ergo, First Selectman, Nita Kincaid, Selectwoman, Bob Carlson, Selectman, Christine Diaz, Admin Finance for the town. We did just come out of a special meeting prior, which had been advertised with regards to the executive session for the contract lease on the school and the old middle school building, so just so everyone's aware. This is our regular meeting, and as such, we always have the ability for public comments, both on agenda and non-agenda items. We ask that all public comments are left to 2 minutes in respect for everyone's time. And we do allow comments on each agenda item as we go through the agenda. So the first item is number 2 on the agenda, which is public comments on non-agenda items. So if there are any public comments on non-agenda items, you simply need to raise your hand. If you're on the phone, you would hit *6 to unmute yourself. If you just raise your blue hand, shows up blue here on Zoom by just clicking on your name and hitting raise hand, you will be recognized. So first comment on this non-agenda item is number 2, and I see Brian has his hand up. Brian, you are recognized.
Yeah, when I went to vote the other day, I noticed that the gate to the tunnel was unlocked and open, and I didn't know if that was supposed to be. Is it supposed to be locked up or what? Because I know it's probably dangerous leaving it open during times when there's, you know, during the day like that. I didn't know if they lock that up every night or if they just keep that open.
Hi, Bob.
I think what's happening there, Brian, is I don't think there's any students using it, but I think administrators might be, the central office might be using it, the superintendent might be using it to go back to the schools. So I think, but there's no students going on the old side of the street, so.
Otherwise, it's going to be locked.
I think we'd have to
Like I say, there was no school that day, I don't believe. And people were
There's no
just going
school,
to vote.
it's
I happened to go by and I said, wow, that's strange. It's wide open and unlocked, you know, it's.
The day of the vote, there was school, Brian.
All right.
Thank you for your comment, though.
Happy birthday, Brian, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Brett Mastriani, you are recognized.
Hello, Mike. I just wanted to check in to see why your recommendation to the elementary school for the Board of Education to look at changing the name to Wheeler. I know it's on their agenda for tomorrow, and they said that you sent an email over requesting them look into changing it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I thought it was a great idea based on the fact that we kind of went towards a campus over on that side of the road. And now with us being a campus with all schools on one side of the road, to kind of have a little more consistency with the Wheeler name, you know, just people I've talked to seem to think it's a good idea. So I made this suggestion, but certainly it's up to the Board of Ed, whatever they'd like to do. But that was my reason for it. So thank you for your comment. Did you have another comment? No. Okay. I don't know if Brett has another comment. I don't know if his hand went down and back up, or But I don't know if you had another comment or you accidentally raised your hand again.
No, I just wanted to follow up with that. Did we check on the municipal side whether it is the Board of Education that changes the name or the selectmen that vote? I've seen it in other towns where it's been done both ways. So I just want to see if now that we're a non-charter town, if we've looked into that side.
I mean, I certainly didn't look into that, but I don't think that I would want to press my suggestion or will on the Board of Ed. I mean, if they weren't interested in it, then I'm not sure that I'm not sure it's something that I would take up with the board necessarily, but I guess we'll see what the Board of Ed's, if you said it's on their agenda tomorrow night, then I guess they'll decide if they think it's of interest. But it seemed to make sense to me, but I'm just one person, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more blue hands for non-agenda items. The first item, or number 3 on our agenda, current ethics policy discussion. This is something we talked about at the last meeting. And Bob, you had offered to do a little bit of research. I don't know if you had time to do that, but if you—
Oh, I did, Mike.
Great.
So I started with abutting towns and worked my way out. So what I found was a lot more than I anticipated. I mean, some towns I couldn't find a code of ethics anywhere. Voluntown had published some of the best practices guidelines for meetings. But I did find, just for an example, Stonington, Preston, and Griswold had code of ethics, but they weren't, like, we have a 1-page, and we have the 1-page paragraph. I'm finding that these towns, not only they have codes of ethics, they have manuals explaining them, and then in some towns have ethics commissions that are set up so they can then hear ethics violations. You have to be appointed to the committee. There's some towns have applications to get appointed, possibly even elected, depending on what the town charter says. But to give you some ideas, Preston's, which was the most comprehensive, was 33 pages long. And that's just the code of ethics. It had nothing to do with the complaint violation of code of ethics, the ethics commission applications, training modules, and forms and training manuals for new incoming electees. The Stonington ethics code was 10 pages long. And the one for Griswold, I believe, was around 10 pages long. So in reading through these, there's so much to it. I don't think it's something that, and we can either keep it simple, but also just a note too on the Stonington one, which is pretty comprehensive for 10 pages, it has been updated since 1999. So therefore, there's nothing in there about social media and the way to comport yourself on social media or Zoom meeting, obviously, which is all new. So we either go to a simplified version, or we can go to a more comprehensive version by possibly even appointing or trying to establish some sort of an ethics code advisory committee. So that's what I came up with, and it's kind of something that the board should discuss and go from there.
Well, I mean, I think simple would be better, but we've got about as simple as you could get when you talk about a 1-page policy is what we have right now. So we could definitely get a little bit more comprehensive than that, I would think.
Well, the 1 page we have almost strictly talks about deriving some sort of income from the town through either siblings, spouses, basically it's talking about that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing it covers. It doesn't talk anything about how meetings are run, how you act, what you do. There's a lot. And the other codes is quite a bit. It varies. It goes into quite a bit different areas. That's all I'm saying. So just a matter of maybe we come back with something simple that covers us for Zoom meetings and social media for now, but eventually it might be something that'd be worth looking into even if it's just a committee to look into developing a code for the town. Maybe that's done by maybe some leaders from some different boards and committees getting together and forming a
task force.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Nita.
I'm just wondering if we don't have pieces of what you would be looking to put into this. It seems to me, and I think it was before we were first the selectmen, I think Sean had done work when everything was going along with regard to social media and what you could and couldn't do and how to be careful. And that's got to still be somewhere because a lot of work went into that. Do we think that there are pieces of what would go into this that we already have and they're just standing there and only occasionally get used because they're not in a booklet or anything like that? I think I could find that when I was talking about.
Well, the social media policy is a town, that is a policy that's posted on the website. And actually, you're right, that was done by the prior administration. And then I think we made some modifications to it after when we got elected, we created social media accounts for the town. That was new. So I think we made some modifications to it. But I think that's a good idea. We might have some of the information that could be kind of put under this umbrella of a new ethics policy for the town. It sounds to me like there's some middle ground between these two policies, and Preston has a pretty elaborate one, it sounds like, and they're, similar to town to us. Stonington being chartered, they haven't opened it sounds like, in a while. So, Bob, I wonder, do you want to take a stab at putting a draft together or something, and maybe we could have a work group to look at it as a board? I mean,
Sure.
maybe it just makes sense to us, like us three, to just kind of put something together.
Yeah, let
versus
me
trying
work
to
on
put
that,
another
but give
committee
me a
together right
couple
now.
of meetings to accomplish it, that's all.
Yeah.
It's not something that has to happen overnight, so.
And if you have those in PDF and maybe you don't have the ability to put them in like a Word document so you can work on the computer, you can always email, or we can convert it over here. So in case you want to work on the computer on it or something. we can do
Yeah,
that.
so I have hard copies I could drop off from those towns I just mentioned. I don't have in PDF. I just
We can
printed them
put
off.
it in like a version you could edit if that's something you like to work that way. We
Yeah,
can help.
let me go through them again, and that might be a good idea.
Okay. Yes, Nita.
One other suggestion, wouldn't it be a good idea to start with an outline and then we could all take a look at the outline and say, yes, this should definitely be in there. No, we really don't need that in our town. And then you have something to fit into as opposed to trying to garble through a lot of things. It's a thought.
No, I agree, Nita. Is Griswold chartered? Do you know?
I don't know. I think they are though, but I'm honestly not 100% sure.
I know they have
Easy
Selectmen,
thing to look at.
but
Yeah.
I would just say, looking at non-chartered towns that have already done this, it's a good place to start.
Mhm.
Not to invent the wheel, right?
Right. Yeah, that would be good. So I don't know, maybe Bob, you can let us know if 3 weeks from now you want to at least talk about the outline. That might be a good thing to keep on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll work on it on one of these weekends. Perfect.
Okay. We'll put the outline on the next agenda. Good idea, Nita. Okay. Is there any public comment on the number 3 current ethics policy discussion? Okay, moving on. The number 4 is the corona. Hang on, I do see a comment, a hand.
I
Yes,
just want to
Chris.
let you know Griswold is not. I was just letting you know Griswold is a non-chartered
All right,
town as
thank you.
well.
Thank you.
Well,
Thanks. Moving on to number 4, the coronavirus relief fund authorization. So this is something, Christine, you can brief us on. And
So we are getting ready okay, so because of COVID-19, we have there are 2 separate ways that we are submitting for reimbursement. So we have submitted for our first portion of reimbursement through June 30th through FEMA. So we have been approved. We have been unofficially approved. We have not gotten our official approval letter, but we have gotten an email saying, yes, we've been approved. So we submitted $31,429.81 to FEMA as our total expenses through June 30th for coronavirus. That includes the Board of Education and the town side. So with that, FEMA covers up to 75% of specific items. And then we're allowed to submit through OPM in the state for the coronavirus relief fund for the remaining 25%. And then if there were things that were not approved by FEMA, we can submit 100% to see if the state will cover, because there's different criteria. So we have gotten the information obviously from the Board of Ed and from the town so that we can put this together. So we need a authorization from the Board of Selectmen to submit for our, that's fun. We need the minutes to reflect that we are authorized to submit through the state for the coronavirus relief fund. So I wanted to just give you all that update that, you know, this is how much we have submitted through FEMA, and we'll be submitting the rest of it through CRF. It is a very long process through FEMA, we're finding, just to hear back from them for the approval. So the state has made extensions several times on when we have to have the CRF information in. So at our next meeting, we'll have the application all together and tell you how much we are officially submitting. But today, if we could just get a motion to approve the fourth quarter spending of $31,429.81 for coronavirus expenses.
So before we go for the motion, let me see if there's any public comment on the topic.
And do the selectmen have any questions?
Oh, and yes, if the selectmen have any questions first. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, I have no questions.
Thank you. Any public comment on the topic? Okay. So do I hear a motion as Christine described?
I'll motion, if they were waiting for, I'll motion to authorize as described by Christine. And have it put into the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 300.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And good job to you and Susan for being on top of all this, as well as the school, Deb and Peter and the whole team. So a lot of work, I know that. Moving on to agenda item number 5, town success metrics discussion with subcategory A, strategic initiatives committee discussion. So the last time we met, we talked about this, and it was kind of like not the most like productive of discussions about the town success metrics. And I think really the gist of the conversation was, well, the town kind of feels like they feel, and this is kind of how it is. And you know, kind of after reflecting on that discussion, you know, and actually talking with our leadership team here with Christine and Juliet, we need to do better than that, really. So what came to mind for me was I was thinking back to when the school building project failed, and it failed 3 times. And we kind of came back and said, you know what, this really can't be, because this is really important. We have to do something here. Like, not doing nothing is not an option. So what do we do? And what happened in response to that was the creation of a tri-board. And that tri-board did a lot of work trying to investigate, you know, what do we do here? And ultimately we have new schools now. So it was a great effort of the tri-board, long story short. So it got me thinking that we have a couple of issues that continue to have controversy or perceived misinformation, or however you want to term it, like we're not getting a chance to fully explore the benefits and the detriments to these things. And what I'm talking about is infrastructure for the town. So when we talk about water and sewer, we sent the postcard out. We've had some joint meetings, but still there's not a full understanding about why this would be needed in the town. Christine, what was the second thing? It's like the second item.
What did you just say was the first item? I'm sorry, I was typing it.
Infrastructure. What was the second one? I lost my notes.
Housing was the second.
Oh, and housing. Like we've talked a lot about housing, and this really comes to mind because of the whole Winnebago Hill thing. Like a lot of resources were being spent, and we're on the road to doing the same thing with the infrastructure, but also the housing in Winnebago, and the money we put into it, and the time we put into it, and the time that our staff puts into it, and then only to be defeated. So I guess the point is, ultimately, if the people in town don't want stuff, that's okay. Like there's not a problem with that. It's just there needs to be further exploration of this, so that way we hear that a little louder and we don't waste our time. And ultimately, on some of these things that we're talking about, there has to be an understanding where if we don't do certain things, what does that mean what does that actually mean? So what I was going to suggest was that we look to form a task force similar to like what the tri-board did for these two items, and get people to be on it, and we need leaders to be on it, to drive some conversations, and really not just meet. I mean, I'm talking about having to meet every couple weeks, just like the tri-board did, to really explore these things. And I really wanted to talk about what the selectmen thought about that idea. And Bob, I know you were really involved in the tri-board. I think you co-chaired it. And I know, I'm sure you were very involved as well in it. So I just wanted to hear the selectmen's feedback on that thought.
So what the tri-board is we had representation from the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance. The three main bodies that would either get schools built or not built, correct? So I was being the chairman of the Board of Ed at the time was why I was instrumental. And then Mark Donahue was actually the chairman. He was the selectman representative. And then from the Board of Finance, Dan Spring was the representative. But when we came to our meetings, which is, I think it was once a month, actually it was always I think it was a Thursday, third Thursday of the month. We would try to get as many board members would be there, but the three leaders would meet separately before that. Sometimes we meet with Peter Nero, or we'd meet on the second Thursday of the month, and then come back to the entire board open to the town on the fourth Thursday of the month or something like that. So, but that was because those three boards needed to understand where we were going as a town because of the school. That's the three boards that had to say. So here, this is a little bit different, but it sounds like this is more, I don't know if you can narrow it down to three particular boards, or is this a more of a town issue? My only fear is lately, yes, we've had some successes, like tri-board was a success because of where we ended up. Like in my eyes, some people probably think it wasn't a success because of where we ended up. But but we've had recently some boards and committees that I don't know whether they didn't have the right direction or whether they didn't have the right motivation. But I think of the communications committee, I'm disappointed somewhat in some of the committees. The village committee really hasn't done much lately. I think that the repurposing committee, their intent was good, but they really were working with their hands tied because not knowing what the library was going to do with the deed restriction. Yet I think the emergency service committee is doing pretty well. So sometimes I fear when we put together additional committees, I think I'd like to hear more about what would be this committee's outline and what kind of ammunition would we give this committee to start with. I mean, it's almost like the cart was before the horse on the repurposing committee because of the roadblock, which was the Wheel Library. The communications was just, I don't know what happened there. I think that all those people actually moved on to other committees and boards that's still active in the town. And with there was a lot of turnover in the village committee, you know, and if you get a committee together, you can't have a lot of turnover. And some of the biggest leaders in that committee dropped off that committee. So that was a problem with that committee. So I guess I really haven't said much, except I'm a little worried about a committee starting again and not giving the proper direction or the proper information. And then after a few months, it just kind of falls by the wayside. So.
Ian, what are your thoughts?
Did you say my name? Okay.
What do you think?
I think it could be a good idea, but I think that we have never succeeded, and I don't mean this in a bad way, of starting a committee and working with them long enough so they understand how a committee is supposed to work together. And I think it's why we lose some of the committees, or they go off and they start working and then they get upset because I think for example, the communication committee, they soon thought that they couldn't say anything without talking to us about everything. And I think that made it very hard for them to feel good about what they were doing. At least that's what I got from a couple of people.
Well, I think that committee, it's some of those committees, it's crazy, just a little bit because of the way we came in. So
Right.
like we formed the committee because we saw the need, but if you think about it, Nita, you and I, before we were elected, were responsible for an awful lot of communication in town. So then when we were elected selectmen, it was kind of like a weird dynamic of like, well, what do we do? And so I think you hit the nail on the head. And so I think we can understand why some of the committees failed. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily talking about another committee the way that it's being described. So like I would see, Bob, like you described, Mark was like pretty much you and Mark kind of took the lead on it, and Mark was a selectman. So I would see a selectman being at the forefront of this, along with, you know, representation from, you know, a couple of other boards. But really it's about getting the public interaction, I think. I mean, I don't know. It's just an idea. It's just, you know, before we know it, we're going to be talking about water sewer in a more real way. Like, and that's important for the town. And I know it's important. I know why it's important, but not everybody knows why it's important, nor does everybody understand why, if we don't do it, it's going to be, you know, the problems that it will occur. And the housing thing, I think we all understand, we're all supporters of it, but obviously there's work to do for the public to understand that, and for us to understand the public's concerns about it. So I think there has to be, I'm just kind of like, especially, you know, I know especially from Juliet's perspective, and I absolutely agree with her. She spends a lot of time on this stuff, and, you know, to have no outcome, it's disappointing and it's wasteful. It's really just wasteful. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Nita. So how do you feel, you know, as far as?
I think we ought to make a test of doing it, but what I thought I heard you say before, you might be not running, but you might be part of one committee, Bob might be part of another committee, I might be part of a third committee that were really important. Were you saying that no, that's not what you meant at all?
Not really. I just wanted to discuss it with you guys. I'm not sure I have the answer, but I guess the way I envisioned it was similar to like what the tri-board, but it's not a tri-board because it's not made up in the same way, but it's made up of, you know, for instance, we get a member of planning and zoning and a member of EDC, and we get a member of WPCA. So maybe those four folks are kind of the lead on it. And I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone else. With, as Bob described, you know, weekly type meetings maybe, and then, you know, some public meetings every 2 weeks to try to move it forward. Maybe this is not the right way to tackle this. I don't really know the answer. That's why I'm bringing it up for us. I fear that we're going to get to a point where we're going to be ready to kind of go on something, and then the people aren't going to be in support of it. And And that's not the way we want to go about business. Our POCD has given us the direction. It's been written up in many of the plans, but that stuff's now 7 years old and folks forget, people move, and sentiments change. So I think there's more, and maybe it's just more just public hearings that we're just having information sessions. I guess I don't really know. So I wanted to bring it up to you guys, and then, if the public has any comment on it, certainly we could hear from them as well. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I think one important thing, Mike, and if you looked at the tri-board, so in my position at the time as a Board of Ed chair, I was very passionate about what we were talking about, and so was Dan Spring at the time. He was passionate, and Mark was more in favor than against the building of the school. So we had a committee that really wanted to get this accomplished. I think if you look at the some of the committees that have done well, is you have people with passion. I think of the emergency service building committee right now. I see what Sarah does there, and there's passion there. So she's gonna really work hard to make that thing. And I'm not saying the other people don't, but I think it's important to have that. I think that Margaret has a lot of passion on affordable housing. So I think that certain people, if you don't get that passion, then the committee's going to fall. I think with the village committee, it started out with passion with some of the, I won't mention the names, but the people that live in the village that are the shakers and movers in the village. Once they dropped off, there wasn't a lot of passion left. And there was a couple of old timers that like to come to meetings and talk about the history of the town, but nothing was going to move unless the chairperson did it all themselves. So I think it's important, if you do have this kind of a committee, that you have people that are passionate about what the subject matter is to really move it forward. If they're not, if they have to be talked into being passionate about it, it's gonna fall by the wayside. So that's why when you talk about, of the three of us, when it comes to sewers and water, you've got the most passion of the three of us. I'm still in a learning mode. I can't speak for Nita, but it sounds like you would need to be together with other people that had similar passion to make that thing move forward.
Well, I mean, to me, it's an interesting thing, because I'm only passionate about it because I feel that I'm concerned about the taxes for the town. And I believe that this is the way that we're going to support economic growth. So, so you're right. As far as how I see my role, I feel like it's very important to follow it up. But I'm kind of getting to the point where I just don't feel like wasting my time anymore either on things. And I know, it's a hard thing to say, but when there's opposition to things, that's okay. But I'd rather have it up front. We can discuss it and understand if we're going in the right direction or not. That's really all the point is. Like, let's not waste anyone's time. And like, when you look at the water issue, like, there's a clear need. There's a clear and obvious need for businesses that are there right now. The sewer is not as important at the particular moment, but the housing is a serious issue. It's something that's been discussed time and time again, and we're not really getting anywhere on it. So, all right. So basically, would you support then me pulling together from these groups that were described, representation, and I could describe it, Bob, and your point is very well taken, by the way. We want people who are passionate, and maybe people who haven't necessarily had a voice but care a lot, maybe a different perspective to be involved. I think that'd be great. So would you support me trying to, I guess, pull something together then and just have at least an initial discussion with those folks?
I think to get the initial discussion and then come back and say, this is who we want to have on it, and this is where how we want to start. Yeah, I think it makes the most sense that you would be that person on those particular subjects from the Board of Selectmen. And then you'll know again, you don't want to waste your time, I get it, but you don't want to go through, a year of meetings only to find out that it was a waste of time the entire time you did it. So I think early on what kind of reaction there was to this committee. So I wish we had more attendees tonight, to be honest with you. I'd love to hear more from the public on this, although we do have, I'm sure there's some attendees that will definitely ask, have opinions, but that's all I've got for now.
All right, need anything else before we open it up to public comment?
I think to start with what you think is the most important one, and then to see how it works through, and letting us help where we can, I guess, is what we would be doing. I think it's worth a try. And if it has to be the water sewer thing, then we should all get more involved with it and be willing to kind of reach out to other people about it. And I don't know if that would help. I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I'm just throwing it at you. It's not like we have to solve it tonight.
No, I think when you open the
Oh.
meeting up, if you have meetings of the smaller group and then you open it up once a month to a meeting, or however often you want to do it, to the town and to everyone, then I think that all selectmen should be at that meeting, and possibly all EDC members and all planning and zoning members, whoever can help participate. Juliet could be at, I mean, that's the bigger meeting, but you get a lot accomplished in those small meetings, then you can bring those ideas to the bigger meeting, so.
It's true.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. Let's see, Brett Mastriani, comment?
Yeah, regarding this, I think what you're suggesting, it actually does the complete opposite. It takes the voice away from the public, because you're trying to take certain things away from the either elected or appointed boards and commissions and put them into a segregated group, which would do more to just push a single agenda item forward and not really be the voice of the people. And I mean, that's a huge difference between an appointed board and elected board. That's how the public speaks out, by their election process. So if you're taking their voice away by putting together a different group to talk about the agenda for the town, when there's boards and commissions that are responsible for that, you're doing the complete opposite of what you're trying to accomplish here.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Any other comments? Brian?
Yeah, I think it may come down to money. I think there's a lot of townspeople in town that are, they're hurting, and they lived here a long time. And I'm talking about the seniors. And we got a lot on our plate. We still don't know where our taxes are going to be in a year or so, and it's troublesome to try to take on another project. So I think by having a conversation, if you want one, you gotta find out where the people are thinking about right now. I mean, I feel we should be taking care of us North Stonington people first, and not trying to get other people in here at this point, because they might be able to afford a house, but they won't be able to afford the taxes. That's just the way I feel about the whole thing. And I've heard projects before. People keep saying, oh, we get this and it's going to bring in income and help with the taxes. I've been hearing that for probably 20 years now. Hasn't happened. My taxes are still going up. So I think we got to have a good conversation on that with the townspeople, how far we want to push this, take care of us first, though. I mean, we still got to have a dog pound. We haven't got that.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Oh, I appreciate the comments and the feedback. Keep plugging. Number 6, 2022 budget timeline discussion. I just wanted to really just have kind of an initial, put this on the agenda. Believe it or not, we'll be talking budget before we know it. And I just thought perhaps, I know, Nita, you in the past have taken on the responsibility of kind of putting a timeline together, and I didn't know if you were interested in doing that again. I certainly would be thankful if you did. I assume Bob probably wouldn't mind either, but just wanted to bring it up to make sure.
Yes, I'd be glad to do that, but I really would like, if we possibly can, do it earlier than we did last year. So that's, actually, we ended up having to change a lot of things in the budget. And I think it's better to start with something. It's going to be hard to start because with so many missing numbers right now, correct? We really don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, we have operated as a board every year since we've been together, that we don't depend on the state for their numbers. We put our budget together. So don't worry about the state. We've done it every year that way. And when, we don't know where the state's going to end up. So we take care of ourselves. We assume we assume level funding, and that has not worked against us so far. And honestly, from the state's perspective, they aren't doing bad. I mean, they're showing that they have surpluses. So I'm not gonna worry about that. We haven't yet. This will be our 5th budget I think we've actually had to pass. And our strategy has been tried and true. So
Okay.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Nita. Earlier would be better, as early as we can do that the submitting boards can handle. I think that would be great. And I think also talking to the Board of Ed to try to, get them on board with that as well, I think will be helpful.
Yeah, we should be back to where we are working with the Board of Education as well. It's sort of separated this past year or so. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd be glad to do it. Thank you.
Any comments, Bob?
No, speaking of the Board of Ed, are they meeting tomorrow night? Do we know? They have a meeting tomorrow night?
They are.
Christine? Okay. Because I want to get back to being the liaison to that again, as I kind of get off it when we're working with the Board of Finance so much during budget season, and then COVID came and meetings were different, but I just wanted to make sure. So, no, my only comment is yes, if Nita, if you want to put the schedule together, I agree. If we can get seems to me to get the Board of Ed involved earlier is better, because they tend to be the ones that we're waiting for towards the end. I know they have a much bigger budget, but it's sooner would be better. And they should have a pretty good idea now on their expenses with the new buildings. So
Great. Any comments, public comments on that? Okay. We have minutes. They're from September 8th.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 8, 2020 as submitted by Christine.
And I would second it because it's a super lengthy, but excellent set of minutes, don't you think? Yes.
So you're seconding it on length and not content, Nita? Is that it?
Further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 3-0-0. We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned at 6:45. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Selectmen. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Mhm.